And the New Yorker reports on a new museum and memorial in Montgomery, Alabama, for America to confront its legacy of slavery. The Memorial to Peace and Justice is expected to open in 2017, and this would be the biggest and most comprehensive memorial for the thousands of people who were lynched. It is the latest project from Bryan Stevenson, the founder and executive director of the Equal Justice Initiative. His organization has helped spare the lives of more than 115 wrongly condemned death row prisoners. He's back with us at the table to discuss this new memorial. Hello, Bryan. Good to see you.
Good to see you, too.
This is probably one of the, how would you describe it, taboo subjects that certainly nobody wants to discuss, and then to say, let's put it in a memorial. What is your thinking here?
Well, I don't think we've done a very good job of recognizing this history, and I think we've been compromised by that. When you go to South Africa, you are confronted with the legacy of apartheid. If you go to Rwanda, they make sure that you understand what genocide did. If you go to Germany, you can't actually go many places in Berlin without seeing the markers and the stones that have been placed at the homes of Jewish families that were abducted during the Holocaust. The Germans actually want you to go to Auschwitz to confront soberly that legacy. In this country...
Why is this so difficult?
Well, I think it's important because when you do that, you change your identity, you change your relationship to these histories of mass atrocity and violence. But when you don't do that, things linger. The smog created by that history of racial inequality continues to compromise our health. And in this country, we haven't done that about slavery, about lynching, about segregation. There's no place in this country where you can go and have an honest experience with the history of lynching.
And why? Do you think it's because it's too painful?
I think it's because we have created a narrative of denial. We've created a narrative that says we're not going to talk about the mistakes we make. We do the Olympics great, we do success great, we do pride great, we do victory great, but we don't do mistake very well in this country. We don't do error very well. We have a hard time collectively saying, I'm sorry. I think it's because we've become such a punitive society. We think if we own up to our mistakes, something bad is going to happen to us, we're going to get punished. And I'm not doing these projects because I want to punish America. I want us to be liberated from the chains that this history has created. And it would be different if we didn't want to talk about the past. That's not our dynamic here. In the South, the landscape is littered with the iconography of the Confederacy. We love talking about mid-19th century history. In Montgomery, there are 59 markers and monuments to the Confederacy. Our two largest high schools are Robert E. Lee High and Jefferson Davis High. Confederate Memorial Day is a state holiday. Jefferson Davis's birthday is a state holiday. We don't even have Martin Luther King Day. It's Martin Luther King / Robert E. Lee Day. We are preoccupied with the mid-19th century history, but we won't talk about slavery, and that creates a problem. And so this project is aimed at trying to change that. We've got to resurrect this history. We've got to talk about the challenges created by slavery. We've got to talk about the challenges created by lynching. People don't understand that that was terrorism. We menaced and traumatized millions of African Americans in this country. At the beginning of the 20th century, 90% of the black population lived in the Deep South. And then they fled by the millions. And the black people in Milwaukee and Cleveland and Chicago and Detroit and New York and Los Angeles didn't come to those communities as immigrants looking for new economic opportunities. They came to these communities as refugees and exiles from terror in the American South. And if we don't talk about that history, we're not going to understand the challenges that have been created. And so we want to give name to this history. We want to name the victims of lynching. We want to talk about people like Elizabeth Lawrence, who was lynched because she scolded children for throwing stones at her. We want to talk about people who were lynched because they bumped accidentally into white people as they were going to the train station. We want to talk about all of the devastation. We want to talk about the fact that these lynchings took place in the public square with thousands of people cheering them on.
When was the last lynching in America?
We document lynchings between 1877 and 1950. There's continued violence, obviously, until this very day. I mean, there was a hanging, but we make a distinction. We call racial terror lynchings the acts of violence that were done with complete impunity, where there was no risk of prosecution. And so our study focuses on those that take place between 1877 and 1950. By the 1940s and 50s, we started moving lynchings indoors. We had the death penalty to play that role.
We're running out of time. I mean, what you're trying to say is that we have to recognize what is the legacy of slavery in America, and only then can we begin to appreciate racial violence in 2016.
That's exactly right. That is, until we own up to this history, we're going to be compromised by an identity that doesn't allow us to talk freely about these problems.
Thank you for coming. It's a pleasure.
You're
always.
very welcome. Very welcome.
My friend
Good to
Bryan
see you.
Stevenson.
Yes,
Fascinating work.
Thank you.